The latest meetings of Pope Leo XIV have left Catholics all over the world in shock and confusion. Many faithful believers are asking themselves what is really going on. Behind the closed doors of the Vatican, the truth is that the Pope's recent encounters with controversial figures such as James Martin and Sister Maria Lucia Carem are not just ordinary meetings. They carry heavy meaning, they send signals, and they open wounds inside the Catholic Church. People who love their faith deeply are looking at these events and wondering if the very foundations of Catholic teaching are being shaken. The meeting with James Martin was not a small gesture. It was not a random appointment squeezed into a busy schedule. James Martin is not just another priest. For years, he has been one of the most divisive figures in the Catholic world. Some people praise him as a brilliant communicator who knows how to reach modern audiences. They call him one of the most famous priests in the world. But on the other side, there are countless faithful who see him as dangerous. A man whose words confuse doctrine, blur the truth, and open doors that should never be opened. When Pope Leo XIV chose to welcome James Martin, many Catholics did not see it as a neutral gesture. They did not see it as a simple act of kindness or hospitality. To them, it looked like something much more serious, a form of approval, a stamp of legitimacy, a sign that the Pope might be leaning towards ideas that many consider against the true teachings of the Church. People remembered that Leo had refused to meet others in the past, even high-ranking officials. The American ambassador, for example, expected a private meeting according to tradition, but the Pope refused and sent an assistant instead. That choice showed that when Pope Leo wants to send a strong message, he knows exactly how to do it. So why did he not refuse James Martin? Why did he instead open the doors of the Vatican to him? And as if this was not enough to stir unease, another figure soon entered the stage, Sister Maria Lucia Carem. Her name might not be known everywhere, but in Europe, especially in Spain, she is famous for her bold statements that openly go against traditional church teaching. She has spoken against the perpetual virginity of the Virgin Mary. She has called for blessings of every type of union, regardless of the Church's teaching. She has even said that neither God nor the Church should interfere with practices that are against life. These are not small opinions. They are not slips of the tongue. They are direct, repeated claims that many theologians call heretical. So, why did Pope Leo XIV welcome her with a private audience? Why give her the honor that is denied too many faithful priests and bishops who stand firmly by the doctrine of the Church? That is the burning question troubling so many Catholics today. The way these meetings were handled makes the situation even more mysterious. The Vatican has a bulletin that carefully records the Pope's official appointments each day, but strangely, neither the meeting with James Martin nor the one with Sister Carem appeared there. It was as if they were hidden, and yet, only a few hours later, official Vatican channels began releasing photos of the meetings, complete with watermarks, almost as if they wanted to make the images public, but without taking responsibility in writing. Why would they hide something on paper, but then show it in pictures? Why erase with one hand and reveal with the other? This contradiction has left many faithful speechless. If the Pope wanted to correct Sister Carem or James Martin, then why keep the meeting secret? Why not make it known so that the faithful could see it was an act of guidance or correction? Instead, the photos that were released gave the opposite impression, that the Pope was endorsing them, showing closeness, even approval. And for many Catholics, this impression hurts deeply. Deacon Nick Donnelly from England spoke strongly about the issue. He said that the meeting with Sister Carem was even more serious than the one with James Martin. To him, allowing someone who openly denies the perpetual virginity of Mary into the Pope's presence is not just a small mistake, it is a legitimization of formal heresy. He saw the official Vatican photos as a stamp of approval, a silent message that the Pope stands with her, even if no words were spoken publicly. The faithful cannot ignore what they see. They have been taught that the Church is clear in its teachings, that truth does not change, and that heresy must be resisted. But now they see figures who contradict core doctrines being welcomed and honored, while priests who stay true to doctrine are often sidelined, silenced, or even removed. The imbalance is painful. It feels like a double-standard punishment for those who defend tradition, and applause for those who challenge it. The silence surrounding Sister Carem after her Vatican visit makes things even stranger. Usually, she is quick to speak out. She shares her life on social media. She posts photos with politicians and celebrities, and she comments freely on sensitive topics. But this time, after meeting the Pope, she said nothing. No statements, No photos, no celebrations. The media, which normally loves to amplify her voice, was also silent. Such silence feels planned, almost as if it were ordered. Why would a woman who enjoys publicity suddenly hide one of the most important meetings of her life? And then there are the Vatican photos. If silence was the goal, why release them at all? Was it a mistake, or was it a signal, carefully calculated, to show the meeting but keep the details in the dark? Either way, the faithful are left with more questions than answers. This handling of the meetings feels opaque, almost hidden in shadows. If the purpose was correction, then hiding it makes no sense. If the purpose was approval, then hiding it first and showing it later looks like manipulation. Either way, the trust of the faithful is shaken. People who have dedicated their lives to the church are now asking whether the shepherd is still guarding the flock, or if he is letting wolves in through the gates. The church has gone through many crises in history, from the early centuries of persecution to the great schisms to the painful scandals of recent decades. The faithful have always looked to Rome for clarity, for light, for guidance. But now, what they see instead is confusion, contradiction, and secrecy. They see meetings that are hidden on paper but shown in photos. They see figures who deny central teachings being welcomed while defenders of the faith are ignored. They see silence where there should be truth, and so Catholics are left with heavy hearts. They want to believe in their Pope. They want to trust their shepherd. But these latest actions have left them questioning, praying, and hoping for answers that do not come. The unease that has spread among Catholics after these meetings is not just about personalities. It is about what these choices represent. In the Catholic tradition, gestures often speak louder than words. A handshake, a smile, a private audience. These are not small details. They are messages, symbols, and signals that reach the entire world. When a pope decides to refuse one meeting but accept another, the faithful interpret it as a deliberate sign, and in this case, the signs point to a direction that many do not understand, and even more cannot accept. James Martin has long been described as someone who pushes the boundaries of Catholic teaching. He often speaks in ways that blur lines, mixing compassion with ambiguity, mercy with compromise. Some say he brings people closer to the church, but others argue he does so at the cost of truth. This is why his presence with the Pope caused such a stir. It wasn't just a priest visiting Rome. It was a priest whose name has become almost a battlefield between different visions of the Catholic faith. The situation becomes even heavier when we place Sister Maria Lucia Karam next to him in this story. Unlike James Martin, she does not even try to keep her language soft or careful. She speaks directly, provocatively, sometimes even harshly. She has said things that cut to the heart of doctrine. For example, denying the perpetual virginity of the Virgin Mary is not a small opinion. It strikes at one of the oldest and most sacred beliefs of the Church. To many Catholics, this is not a question of debate. It is a truth that has been held for centuries, defended by saints and honored by the faithful. To hear a nun dismiss it so lightly is painful. And yet, instead of correction, she is welcomed to the Vatican with honors. This is what has left so many people stunned. It is not only what was said in the meeting, since we may never know that. It is what the meetings themselves symbolize. In a church that has always valued clarity, these actions feel confusing. They make people wonder if the leaders are drifting away from the clear path of doctrine into a sea of compromise. The secrecy around the meetings adds another layer of tension. When the Vatican Bulletin, which is supposed to record every papal audience, leaves out such important encounters, people notice the omission is not small. It suggests that something unusual, maybe even controversial, was happening. And then, when the Vatican itself later releases official photos, the confusion deepens.